Consistency. Consistency is the key.
Yeah, but you're a minute early for bone pile. I get to keep all my mustache hairs.
Yeah, that is true. That Chris is 4 minutes late today. Nope. I was watching all the comments. That way, if someone made a bet, I'd prove them wrong. What's going on, guys?
Not much. Waiting on
Hot?
August.
I
Yeah,
know it's hot down there.
It's like 110 today.
There he goes. Hunter. That's what he said.
Yep.
Yeah.
Richard Fight. Evening from Phoenix, 110 degrees. And then you got old Louisiana hunting. Hot and wet.
It's hot and wet here too because I've been sweating this afternoon.
Oh. Then you got Wayne talking that prison stuff, pretending everybody's a lady. Yeah, 80. It was. What is it right now? I felt like it cooled off. 91. Never mind. The hell.
That ain't cool.
The high was 94 today.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a little too hot.
Yes, sir.
What happened? There was some stuff that happened. We had a couple shootings in Snowflake.
Yeah,
I saw that.
I know, crazy. So there was a situation in Sholo, and my wife watches the Facebook stuff and seeing that there was some guns drawn in Sholo. I haven't heard from Cody Lynn, so now
Oh,
yeah, I know. I'm not worried about it. It does kind of, I'm waiting for the story or something, but my wife, she freaks out. They better not put her in that situation. She ain't ready yet. I said, you're never ready. You're never ready in that.
It's something that no matter what you say, you don't really want to face that.
first time's always too soon.
Oh, yeah. There's people that's been in the business 20, 30 years as law enforcement. I think my favorite story is Meat Eaters, the Steve Rinella's campfire stories. I think that's what it is, right? And the game warden here from Vernon was investigating. Jared decided to show up.
There he is.
He muted his truck right away, too. You had to do a job, Jared? Did you leave a job and headed to a job?
What?
Did you leave a job to head to a job?
No, I am done for today.
Oh.
I'm going home.
Yep. I didn't listen to Dan Gates' podcast this morning, but it's probably about public land or... Oh, no. They're coming after Colorado for trying to get rid of the selling of furs.
Get the heck out of here.
Yeah, it'll never stop.
No.
They strategically plan all this stuff is what they do. So they bounce back and forth. They went to Colorado, then they went to Arizona. Now they're back in Colorado. Oh, glad of you to take a little time to join us.
Hey, there he is.
Hot. Got to make sure everybody was topped off on water
and beer.
Yeah, and I had about 100 bees in my freaking dog bowls right now. It was so damn dry out here. All the honeybees just gravitating.
Oh, maybe take a bowl. What I would do is take a bowl and run it out there 100 yards, keep it full of water, and maybe they'll stay off you. I can't say nothing. I have a beehive under my house, and it's about the fifth one. I lost 7 dogs to one of them.
What?
Yeah, and a robber, they call it a robber hive, come in, tried to break in, and then it's just a big fight. And I think my neighbor was coming over. This is no lie. I think my neighbor was coming over to complain about my dogs barking because he was an old guy and he bought the property next to me a long while ago. I hear him over there. Shut up! Shut up! I don't got to do it. He came over, got the truck, opened up the door, and you know that show, that movie Tommy Boy, when he gets out and he's all bees, bees. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
That's what he did, man. I had one dog die in my house about 11 o'clock at night, and I was taking a lice comb and just scraping stingers out of her fur. So, yeah, she died, and what was crazy when you hear those dogs die, or those dogs out in the like the neighborhood, everybody howls, right? When she died in my lap, took her last breath, my dog started howling. So now every time I hear them dogs, you know, they all light up and just kind of do their howl. I'm like, damn, I wonder if another dog died. Kind of crazy. Right when she died, I'm talking, she took her last breath, and I'm like, yeah, she just died. They howl.
Like
Crazy.
Like
Bad
3
deal.
years ago, 4 years ago, I was down in Arizona for lion opener in August, and we caught this lion just to pop up 100 yards and treat it. And I petted him up, pulled him off, and we were walking back to the truck, and we busted up a group of monkeys. And the dogs got into it with the monkeys a little bit, and all of a sudden they started screaming bloody murder and taking off running every direction. And I had a little black and tan female, and she must have had 20 bees on her butt. Them monkeys were eating. They must have busted up a honeycomb or honey nest or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And that was wild. Oh man, I got stung in my eyelid.
You can't outrun a bee.
No.
My dad, we came into a game water once on our horses, and there was bees in there, and we didn't care, you know. And we come in there, and those bees just got mad we was there, and we took off running. And I look over at my dad, you know, they're going after him, and he got stung right in the tip of the nose. I had to dig the stinger out of his nose. Yeah, bees are no fun, especially if you're allergic.
I'm not sure really how to get rid of them. I gotta get a bunch of those traps. The flies were real bad this year too.
Flies are bad this year.
I got tons of fly traps all over this son of a gun, and trying to get them drawn away from the dogs and everything. Because I'll go over there, and I keep those kennels clean, and they've got cinders in there, and I rake the cinders, so all the, you know, any of the small little bits of crap that it'll get sifted through and go down to the bottom more. And my God, man, it's just rough. But I put misters in over there because it got hot, so they've been. I think that's what's drawing everything in. There's no water anywhere else.
Yeah,
Bad deal. Just
yeah,
so
I'd
dry.
put some water far away. Maybe they'll stay out of the. They'll stay out. Yeah, it's dry.
Kind of weird though. They go more to my dog water than they do my horse trough.
See, all you gotta do is just bring all your dogs in your house all the time, and then you don't gotta worry about it.
Yeah.
You only got 40 of them. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
Get a bigger
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a
Build you a
gal. What was it? We got up to 110 the other day, and there was a gal that put on Roswell buy, sell, and trade that everybody needs to bring their dogs in the house. They don't need to leave them out on chain or in a kennel, even if they got shade. You just go stand out in the shade in this heat and see how you like it. What the hell's the matter with you? And she's going on. And so I said, so what about the coyotes? Do we trap all the coyotes and bring them in? And what about all those foxes? And then she called me a sarcastic smartass. I couldn't believe it.
Never would you ever. I can't. That's just an insulting compliment there.
I don't think that he said let's set up a raffle by Jared, a proper Bluetooth headset with noise canceling. But I think it's Brandon has wind over there.
Oh,
Yeah.
hold on. Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
What do you do? Mute himself?
I
Oh, he
always
did.
tell
Yeah, it's him.
myself, if I can work in 100-degree heat and direct sun, I think my dogs will be okay in the shade in 100 degrees.
I wish I could have mine outside. I'm telling you, they're right now in there yelling. And
I kept mine outside down there.
I would if I could. I just can't with my neighborhood that have me kicked out of this place.
No dog
Just
will
put a
bark
little
in
mister
110
system.
degrees for 2.
Yeah, no dog's gonna bark at her in the 10. Yeah.
I'm more concerned
They'll
with
get
them treeing a
they'll
stray
get
cat
tuckered
at
out
3
real
o'clock in
quick.
the morning.
Wayne was flighted over a bee stings. He stepped on a neat berry picking 30 miles on nest. Yeah, we were out hunting bears like one time, and one of my dogs jumped over a log and fell into a bee hole where they had a nest underground. and that was those meat bees. And they went crazy.
That's a rough deal.
Yeah, I don't know. Wasps were worse, right? Sting you 100
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Bee can only sting you once. There's just 1,000 of them.
A honeybee can, but I haven't seen them for a long time. But we used to get into bumblebees over here, and those things can keep after you too.
Yeah, I don't see much of them anymore.
Down on the border, I've never seen them yet. I mean, I run into bees all the time, especially in the fall of the year. But a couple quail hunters I ran into said they ran into killer bees a couple of times.
The Africanized.
Yeah, where they just light you up for being there.
I ain't never seen them.
Well,
You'll
I don't
know
know
it.
if that's what. Yeah, I don't know if that's what came. That might have been what's on that water hole me and my dad rode into one time. But sometimes they're just aggressive.
Yeah.
And if you smack one, you'll find out that they're all there. You can see them.
One thing that
I
I
used-
never heard two words put together that should honestly never ever be put together is tarantula wasp.
Oh,
When I saw Yeah, I saw
Those
these things
things are
caught this big
ginormous.
giant black wasp flying through the sky, and I look at my buddy. I'm like, "What the hell is that?" He goes, "Tarantula wasp." I said, "No! Don't ever put those two words together again."
that's who. This girl's husband right here that said tarantula hawks. They call them tarantula hawks because they're weird, anyways. And
Dude,
her
there's a
husband.
sign to your song.
We was in Springerville, and we was going to Subway, and we was walking in, and I seen this tarantula wasp come right down on him and hit his. And what he did is he smacked it on the back of his neck, and it stung him. I think it didn't sting him full force, because he was inside. We went inside, and he kind of acted like it didn't hurt, but then he's like, "Yeah, it stings."
Do they have a poison to them? Those ones?
They're supposed to be one of the worst.
Really?
Stings.
Yeah, I can't
Watch
imagine.
that. What is that coyote guy who stings himself?
I saw that. That was
I ain't
ridiculous.
seen that.
Yeah, it's on. You look on YouTube. Coyote Barrett or Coyote. I don't know his name. Someone on here probably knows his name.
Just put on just search for tarantula hawk or tarantula wasp sting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not fun. They're not fun. I keep my eye on them. I tell you that.
So one time before I just moved up to the desert from Montana, and my buddy had a sheep tag, so we were goofing around one night setting up trail cameras and glassing for sheep. And when we were at this spring, there must have been 67 tarantula wasps, and I didn't know what they were, so I looked at him. I'm like, "What are those things, man?" And he's like, "Those are tarantula wasps." He's like, "They're super poisonous." And I threw a rock at him. I took off running. And I was all, "Sucks to be you."
They're super aggressive too when they want to be.
Yeah, he took off running too. He's told me not to do that again. They're actually mean. And I'm like, "Oh, I thought you were joking."
I got a good story. It's not my story, but a guy I used to work for, old outfitter. He was out lion hunting during the middle of winter, and he found a perfect nest. And he's like, "Oh, that's great! I'm going to take that I'm gonna bring it to my taxidermist, and he can use it for my bear mount. So he goes and he throws it in his pack, and he, heads for, jumps on his snowmobile, heads for the truck, heading home for the day, throws his pack in the back and kind of had it unzipped a little bit. Well, all of a sudden he's driving and he hears bzzz, it's buzzing going on. Well, all those things that were hibernating in there weren't hibernating anymore because of the heat of his pickup. And the entire hive woke up inside of his truck. He said it took about 4 hours before he could get them all out of there and he could actually drive. But yeah.
No fun.
Better make sure you put them in a trash bag before you do that.
Right.
No kidding. Leave them in the bed of the pickup or something.
Well, I've heard guys, they put them in a trash bag and then they grab some gasoline and then close it. Just the fumes will get rid of the bees.
That'll do it.
But
Wayne said, "Isn't giving any aunties watching much, like the reservation's watching us. Aunties are on the reservation."
Chris knows about the Annies, I bet.
I know about the aunties. Yeah, buddy.
I bet you do.
I'm trying to get me a hunting spot down there.
So, what do you want to talk about tonight then? What's our topic?
Putting chalk collars on dogs in the house.
I'll be right back, you guys. I gotta go shut that
thing up. that Tara girl right here. In the summer, she brought all her dogs in the house. It drove me crazy. I yelled at her all the time. Said, "How you expect them dogs to get tough? You bring them in the house." Had like 8 kennels in her house. I don't know. What you talk about handlers? What else going on real quick? What did he say? He said, let me see here. Well, I'll have to listen to that real quick. Jeremiah said, where's he at? They're trying to disband the Dow, big surprise, right? And replace it with activists. But they've been trying to do that for a while. So I think Oregon's already done that on a couple of them, right?
Washington's the worst of them. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Washington, yep. I think it's insane how they put people on their commission there. I mean, Arizona's not bad. They could have it squared away a little bit better, but Washington's so completely corrupt.
Well, I mean, the governor. It's the governor's doing it.
I think they got rid of Inslee, didn't they?
Or the governor's husband. Yeah, I think they did, right?
Yeah. You're saying
No, I know. I'm just making fun of the Colorado guy. He pops up on my feed, and all his stuff he does is just. You got to have something to fuel you and make you hate life, and just watch that. Watch that Colorado governor, and just no fun. But anyways, last week we started talking last week about raising pups, and I figured, well, why don't we follow it up with the handler? Because 90% of the 95% of the time, no matter how good a dog you have, right? You don't got a good handler.
That's it's such an interesting aspect too, because we talked about it a little bit. Depending on what you're doing, if you're snow hunting, if you're bear hunting, if you're coon hunting, depending on what type of hunt you want, if you want to be a more like Benny talked about when he says his dog's name and he calls it and wants it to come here, he wants it to come here now. But then you got, like the Richard Dickerson, who's just like, I didn't give a shit if they even knew their name.
Yeah, he didn't hunt with nobody.
Yeah.
He just went. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But you guys should all have the benefit of hunting with Richard Dickerson. I mean, we hunted way, way, way back, and that guy that you saw interviewed, is still the same guy that he was as a teenager.
Well, didn't he just get in the fight that day, or
Yeah.
because someone yanked
Yeah.
on his horse or whipped his horse that he was going to buy
Well,
from him?
it wasn't right then. That had been, I don't know, 6 or 8 months prior. But I think he gets. I think he goes to those ropings, and it's pretty regular, commonplace for those guys to think that they can take the old guy.
Yeah.
And it's what's he say? Whoopsie.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Yep,
Whoopsie.
that's right. Yeah.
Whoopsie. Yep.
Yeah.
But you know, when
it's-
he's 8 years old and he's taking taekwondo and he's taking judo, it's building yourself up for an 80-year-old whoopsie.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yep. So I think it's important.
Well, and handling, I wish Dustin was here because
He'll be here. He got a little late. He said he got caught up with something.
I like listening about how the Africans handle their dogs in a different manner, and how he took some of that from them and he wants to apply more of it. And obviously I think, like we've talked about before, it's a lot of it is spending time with your dogs even when you're not hunting. You know what I mean? Just doing those things, going out to the kennel, make yourself a nice enough kennel that you want to go out and spend some time with your dogs. Put your dogs in shade areas so you want to go out there during the day and you want to go and pet them up and talk to them and whatever the heck it may be, that they understand you and they get. I think that is such a. I mean, even like for example, I picked up a dog, I don't know, a week or two ago, and about a week ago, and she's 3 years old, super sweet, hunts great and stuff like that. But the moment I walk up to the kennel door, she right into the doghouse. It wants nothing to do with me, really. And, I don't think that's anything really to do with me. It's just other than I have to put in the time with her. She's got to get to know me. So every dog's a little bit different. Some dogs are, everybody's friend, and some dogs are nobody's friend, and some dogs are one person's friend. And I think that a lot of the, so in handling, in my experience anyways, I started out with dogs in the waterfowl world. So I was doing hunt tests and field trials and stuff like that. And I was training dogs for guys that were in that world that, they had a kennel that they were breeding dogs and they would send me 2 or 3 puppies at a time. And I trained those puppies up from the time that they were, 8 weeks old or six weeks old up to the time that they were, about 1.5 years to 2 years old. And then we get them onto their hunting homes or whatever they're going to go do. And then in my hound hunting experience, as far as being just strictly like a handler from not owning dogs and is when I very first started, in the hound world, I was working for an outfitter that he would give me, 2, 3, or 4 dogs at a time. And I'd take him out for that day and I'd go run those dogs and I'd handle those dogs for him. Or he would send me off with a GPS and say, here, go follow these dogs, kind of thing. And that was my experience of just being a handler and learning how to have less emotional attachment to the dog and learn how to just handle the dog. Because I know we've talked a little bit about how like the coon hunting side of the world, they have handlers. They have strict handlers who a guy buys the dog and then he pays this guy to go hunt him all the time because he's got some other, job that he can afford to buy a dog like that would maybe become a world champion or something like that. And so I think there's such a different aspect in depending on what you're doing to how your handling is going to be. But I think it's like a very big question of talking about that openly with everybody here because, Jared handles his dogs different than I handle my dogs. And that's just because we might hunt slightly different or prefer certain qualities.
Yeah, I got those 2 dogs I got from Brett Vaughn. They're skittish to me.
Mm-hmm.
My kids, they're great too. But his grandson handled those dogs. Right? And I'm the one that's out there shooting them with BB guns. Oh, you're not allowed to do that no more. I'm out there telling them to shut up and yelling at them. Like today I went out there and I was cleaning waters and I had to pull him out of the box. But once he's out of the box, every time I go out there I have to pet him. Jared's dog I got from him was a little smaller. So it was a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And then a guy gave me a couple beagles at the hound trials, half beagles. And one went with a girl and one came home with me and just different dogs. You know, my dogs at that age are way different than other people's dogs. And I think with me, I've raised my own dogs from puppies for so long that it's weird when someone gives me a dog and they don't act like my dogs. And I think that's all handler, how I raise them. You know, Brett's dogs, I can't go whoop and they come to me. You know what I mean? Rowdy's or Jared's dog, I can't go whoop and it comes to me. It does now, you know, but took a lot of
that puppy
training.
you're talking about?
The what?
The puppy?
Yeah. You know, it's just, but I have kids. So if I don't see my pups for 2 weeks, they're still getting seen 3 times a day by my kids, you know, and they all know to say whoop and get them to come to them. And like today they were, I don't know, I named him Hondo. He's a stubborn little bastard, just like his ex-owner. So, but he, you know, we put him on a 20-foot rope and it didn't take him long. Like he comes, but you let him off and they've been chained up for a couple of days and you got to let him run around and burn up that energy. You know, my boy tried to pull him out off the chain there and then just go start training him. I said, man, you got to let that dog run around a little bit. Let him burn off his energy for a while, then start playing with him. So, but anyways, it is different. It's different.
Well,
one handler to the other.
I can imagine
for sure
everything's changed a whole new world when shot collars came out and tracking collars came out. You know, the way that guys had to handle their dogs, and you really had to know each dog individually so much more, I believe, than what we have now with the tracking collars, because you can learn that dog if you know how to read a GPS. If you understand how the GPS works, you can learn that dog, and if you got ears and you can keep up with dogs, you can learn it. But I definitely think that the handling situation, I think it's like, you know, there's this different aspect to it because we go home every day versus back in the day where you'd stay out 2 or 3 days. And everybody's a coon hunter, or if you're a coon hunter and you're hunting a 500 acre to 1,000 acre parcel somewhere that somebody's got, or maybe a little bit bigger than that, maybe a little bit smaller than that sometimes. If you're bear hunting, you don't, especially a lot of the guys in the north, now that they had wolves back then, I'm sure, but they're eliminating most of them. But most guys, they don't want to turn loose on a old cold bear track and go work with their dogs, all day long to go catch that one bear. They want to drive, and they know there's enough bear. They're going to go wait for a screaming hot box rocker that they're going to go and dump loose on and catch it in, maybe 30 minutes to, and, a couple hours at most, hopefully. And so it's like, you have so much different aspects to it. It's a hard conversation onto what's going to work best for each person. But if you're talking skill on ground as far as being a hunter, and like with lion hunting, I think a lot of that comes to, there's a lot more skill to dry ground lion hunting that you have to possess. You have to have in your arsenal. You have to have a lot more tools and have a lot more knowledge to be truly successful consecutively. Because I think a lot of us, especially guys that get after and hunt, 3 to 4 days a week at minimum, and are out there doing it, 90% of the year, probably have pretty decent dogs. You know what I mean? Like you're not hunting that much and not producing something. Even if you're screwing up, your dogs are out there, they're hunting, they're getting their feet on the ground. And like, obviously you got to understand when it's time to cut one loose and send them to a new home. But it's also this whole different aspect of when you're out there and you're putting that much time in, that you're getting something out of those dogs. So if things aren't working out for you after so much time of putting on 3 to 4 days a week, time to start questioning yourself. It's time to start questioning the handler. Am I doing the right things? Do I need to? Jared's probably one of the best people to reach out and talk to guys who have had experience when he has a tough day. Like I see that dude. He gets in his truck when we leave, and after we have our, got our ass kicked cigarette, he gets in his truck and he jumps on the phone and he's talking to somebody about what happened that day. And I think that's a really cool thing to, take into account too, that you got to, and like we've talked about before with having a good mentor that's going to put you in the right direction, that you can actually, do that. You have the ability to call somebody and say, hey, this is what happened. What the hell what would you do?
Exactly.
For a person just getting into dogs, Benny, who's that government lion hunter that retired out of Nevada? Was his name Jim Bueller?
Yeah. Bueller?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I had a hard time with this when I first started, because I was like, Brandon, I came from the waterfowl world training Chesapeake Bay Retrievers and Black Labs. And then I get a hound, and I'm like, whoa, this guy is wild as they come. And all that stuff. You listen to Jim Bueller talk, and he talks about overhandling your dog.
Mm.
I agree with that.
No one talks about that too much.
Keeping that dog, like, now that I've been in the game long enough, or not long enough, but I've been in the game a little bit, I teach puppies 3 things. This is that puppy stage. Their name, to load up in the box, and to shut up. That's it. I don't get on them for anything else.
Yeah, I think that overhandling is a big thing. I agree with that. I think that a lot of, I take it probably farther than a lot of guys.
Puppy deer. Yeah. And my best dog I've always had.
You don't know, we can't hear him too much.
Everybody else is coming out of the transformer.
Can't hear him at all, yeah. But
there he goes.
Maybe.
Uh-oh.
Nope. There you go. You have to start all over.
Oh.
We didn't hear nothing you said.
Nah.
My phone's over here. Did anyone get anything there?
We heard ep.
Yeah.
We heard all the vowels.
1 second, I gotta cool my phone off. It's hotter than heck out.
I think the people who overhandle their dogs are people who get scared and don't want to chase them. They want them right there where they can see them. They don't want to wait until you get to the top of a peak and then listen to them.
I will say that there's a lot. I think there's quite a bit of overhandling with new people, and then guys that they hear like y'all experienced guys talk about helping the dogs out, and they get down in there and messing around and messing their dogs up and calling them this way and calling them that way and trying to make them cross like a pointer and all this. I love it out here because I don't have to be so tight on them. Back east, I got to have a $1 million stop button on that sucker because there's a highway everywhere. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Out here, they go for forever. I don't got to worry about it. I'll find them later, And if they can't find the dang thing, I'm not going to find it. So I don't even try to slow them down or stop them or get over there and turn them around. I mean, if I saw one that was for sure backwards, we'd go the other way, but that only happened once. I'm not, I didn't go to Jeremy's tracking school to find line tracks on rocks and stuff, you know what I mean? So I ain't real good at it, but yeah, I love not having to have such a tight handle on them out here. It makes it, just let them just kind of figure it out. If they end up a mile or two away, that's all right.
I think you can overhandle them if you're doing a lot of coons or even bears. It's hard. Like, my dogs turn into heathens when it comes to bears. Once they get into the groove with bears, they change. Like, they still listen, but they know to go. And then once I get back down to the flatlands in the desert, they calm back down. Anybody like it's probably better if you did have a certain pack or dogs for one or the other, but I think them dogs know. And if I caught 20, 30, 50% more than what I do catch, they'd know even more.
I'm kind of worried about how mine are going to be this year without that old fella I lost. He was the only thing ever slowed them down, and now they're just going to run everything like a hot bear. That's what they did, after he was gone. Anyways, just they run everything 100 mile an hour all the time and overrun it, lose it, whatever, But just blowing circles and running their guts out all day. I don't know if I'm going to get them to slow up without bringing in something that ain't going to try to blow the country like that.
Yep.
I don't know.
Jeremy made a point, though, is we got a big country they can run in.
Yes, sir. That's a big thing.
He has no country. You have to keep a handle on your dogs over there, I imagine.
Yeah,
you don't run on a neighbor's property or private property or
the road or anything. There's a road everywhere in the East, man.
Mm-hmm.
Even like you hunt the Monongahela is 500,000 acres, but it's about that wide, and it's 500,000 acres long. You can get off of that sucker with a bear pretty quick. And there's these highways all over through everywhere. You constantly having to stop them at the road or cut them off. I don't know.
What about handling in trash breaking? Let's talk about that a little bit. As far as, when are you going to really start getting on a dog hard about trash breaking? Are you going to let him run, a coyote or a deer 2 or 3 times before you finally have enough and you light his world up so he never wants to do it again? Or do you, the moment, when he's, a year old or 14 months old and he's out there and he runs, deer a couple times, do you burn him down, or how do you go about that? What's everybody's opinion?
That's a question for Benny.
That's kind of where I was gearing it mostly, but yeah.
I have zero tolerance on coyotes, and I don't care if it's a newborn or if it's a rusty old. I have zero tolerance on coyotes. Coyotes can cause such a terrible, terrible wreck, and there's so many coyotes no matter where you go anymore. If your dogs are going to run coyotes, they're going to run coyotes ahead of anything else. And,
yes, sir.
And for what? For what? You're not going to, they're going to get wore smooth out. They're going to be on a 3 or 4 hour chase. As far as deer, I don't know how to tell somebody else my view on when a young dog's ready to stop trashing. Depends on how serious they are about trashing. Yes, if they'll throw in and follow the other dogs and work with the other dogs, and then they get bored and they want to go trash, that's one thing. But if they crawl off just to go trash, that's a completely different story. I always hunted horseback or muleback, and I like my dogs to go out and make a little circle out there, a couple 100 yards, and come back and check on me. Let me know that they're still around. And this was before I had any GPS or any of that stuff, any tracking collars. But still, it's still the same. I hunted with a guy one time, and he had, 6 or 7 dogs, and it's supposed to be a top-notch bunch of dogs. And he was looking at his Garmin because the dogs were all scattered. He had one dog 2.5 miles away. I said, "What's that dog doing?" He says, "I don't know." I said, "Well, you got some other dogs over here 700 yards away, the opposite direction, and you got 2 dogs over this way, 300 yards a different direction. What the hell's going on?" He says, "Well, I don't know." I said, "Well, I can tell you, I don't want to spend the rest of the day hanging out with you and worrying about these stupid dogs, So at what point do you just let them go? There's got to be, it gets back to the pack mentality and who's the alpha and who's leading the pack. You don't have to tell them every single breath to take and do all of that. And I overhandled when I was trying to get started and missed some lions. I know I missed them because when the government trapper comes in that afternoon and catches a lion that night, right where your dog was wanting to go and you wouldn't let him, that's pretty good kick in the mouth. So
I think everybody's not trusted their dogs. I don't know. Sometimes with me, it was, I don't want to go down that canyon, or I don't want to go that way. I want to go this way. And same thing. You go around and you drop over and you drop down that canyon, and there's that lion track. You're like, damn it. I think trusting your dog is kind of important, but you have to know how to read your dog too.
Well, your dog has to be able, before I start trash breaking my dogs, it's, have they smelled lions? Have they trailed lions? Have they caught at least a couple?
So that's the other thing. How much game, if you're running bear and you have a dog that's 6 months, a year old, whatever, 14 months old, and it hasn't been on one bear, how does he know what he's supposed to be chasing?
Exactly.
I would love to get my dogs under 2, 3, 4, 5 bear before I start telling them, hey, leave that coyote alone, leave that bear alone, or that deer alone.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the Easterner in me, but I got no tolerance for trash. We ain't gonna run deer. We ain't gonna run no coyote for sure. I ain't running cows or whatever. Like, we're not doing it. I don't care how big they are. I'm just, that's no. If I tell a dog all the wrong stuff and then put him on a hot one, if he don't want to run because he can't run this, then I don't want him. You know what I mean? It's just, life ain't long enough for me to try to entice a dog to chase the game. If they don't want to chase the game because I won't let them chase the trash, they can go somewhere and lay on somebody's couch because I ain't having it.
Well, you talk to Jim Bueller, he brings up every time you trash break a dog, you take a little out of it. If
That's
that
okay.
makes sense.
No, that does make sense. I don't doubt that.
Now, if you catch a couple and let them, like, say you catch 2 lions with that pup, let them chew on one of them, and you've trailed a half a dozen, and you trail a half a dozen, next thing you do, he goes off, he's starting to get more confident, next thing he does is go off trail a coyote. Do you light his neck up, or just tone him back and be like, hey, get your ass over here, we're going this way, you don't need to be fooling with that?
I give him the fire.
I don't. I try to be gentle at first.
No, I don't on a coyote. That's just an automatic no. If I give them the tone, I feel like they know the tone comes from me because I accompany the tone with a vocal command. If they're gonna run a coyote, one pops up, they chase it. I want them to think that running the coyote lights them up, not me lights them up. You know what I mean?
Don't they come back to you when you light them up?
They should.
Well, they'll come back to where they was generally.
I like to shoot coyotes that I see out there. Then I go drag them across the road, hang them in a tree. Or I have someone who's ever ahead of me do it.
Yeah.
Then I let my dogs on the ground.
Yeah.
Especially the dogs. Now, if we're talking about puppies, you could have some leniency, I believe, until you get them under what they want to chase. But if you got a 2, 3-year-old dog that won't stop chasing coyotes, he needs to be on fire. And that's what I do. I hang it in a tree, drag across the road, hang in a tree, let my dogs go, let them sniff it right to that tree. And when their nose touches that coyote, he's getting burned all the way back to my truck.
Yeah. If I had like an established pack of dogs or a pair of good ones, then I could put pups with, and like these dogs know the game. We're going to catch a lion or we're going to catch a bear, then I'm probably a little less hard. But where all I got's pups, I can't allow it, or all we'll do is chase coyotes all the time,
So as a handler, isn't it pretty important for your dogs to know the difference between no and hard no?
I think so.
I think so. There's a difference in like
Depending
knocking off.
I think
the structure of the dog. That goes down to a stubborn dog or a lighthearted dog.
It's kind of like a kid, though, right?
Dog.
Yeah,
kind of like a kid. I leave pistols on my my coffee table when they're 2 years old, and I tell them no. When they touch it, I smack their hand. When they touch it again, I smack their hand harder. I tell them no. And if they touch it again, if they don't learn, you got kids that will touch that thing 10 times and their hand's red, and they'll learn. But they're just a little more stubborn, just like a dog. You got a dog that likes to chase coyotes. Why?
Arizona CPS, freeze.
Hey, come get them. You can have them all. I need a vacation. So,
But at the same time, all of this stuff for the handling and the different trash and all of that, the tolerances, that just goes with the game that you're hunting and the conditions that you're hunting it in. You know, like Derek's talking about back east. Well, when you're coon hunting back east, a buddy of mine left Phoenix. He was a drywaller. He went to New Jersey, and he couldn't catch a coon consistently every weekend on the Salt River. But when he went to New Jersey, he was catching 5 coon within 45 minutes of leaving his own house. So that's a completely different situation. So if you're going to do that, then you can say, hey, you're not allowed to do anything but this. But you go bear dogs are this different deal. And you know, lion dog, when you're hunting lion in the snow versus free casting them out there in the dirt, it's just like this dog over here in Ruidoso. What was his name? Ringo? That Ringo dog?
yeah.
The guy said that he'll run a track if you put him on it, meaning that he's not broke off of everything. If you show him the track and put him on it, he'll go run and catch that lion. So that dog at 8.5 years old was never broke.
No. That's a good puppy training dog if he stays on the track.
Yeah, but you can't free cast a puppy trainer like that.
No.
Yeah.
No. And you're right. It all depends on, there goes Jared. It all depends on the terrain. If you could catch 10 lions a week, you can burn them off of coyotes. You can burn them off of stuff. But I think some guys are a little bit too hard, and their dogs, you could tell on their dogs, and there's some guys that are a little bit too soft. You know, and I'm one of them guys that say, hey, stop, don't do that. I used to go to the golf course midnight and drop my dogs, and I always had deer. I still do. I could go there right now and show deer or elk. Hey, don't do that. They'll run out there and said, you better stop. No. You know, whoop. I just give them a little buzz. You know, if they keep running, I give them a little, you know, back then it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that 6 would roll him. And when he got to that elk and he didn't stop by the time I was on 3, he got the 6. So but I also had the opportunity, just like if you're catching a coon, 5 coons in an hour, or if you're catching 5 lions in a month, you have the opportunity to tell them this is what you're chasing. I had the opportunity to trash break them. So I could trash break them and then go down to the creek. I started off with coons. You know, I was the typical, if you can catch a coon, you can catch a bear. And I did. And I caught lions too. They were tracking, they were treeing, they were pups. I had a 15-year-old, I called her Titties because that's all she had was titties, drugged around. And she would, if she was on it, I knew we were going to catch a coon and I could let the dogs go. And I didn't have to worry about them. Now, if they took off after a ringtail cat or a fox that was down there, and we were chasing a coon and I knew we were chasing a coon, then I think you could say, hey, no, get back on this track. And once you did shock them, they didn't come back to me. They went back to Katie, the hound, and followed her. So I think it's all about opportunistic chances of trash breaking or praising.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be interested to hear from those bear hunters in Virginia, you know, because they're hunting bears almost year round and they catch a lot of bears. So what's their view? And Cody King with 120 bobcats a year, what's he doing?
I mean,
he's down there in Mexico a lot, and you don't want your dogs going off doing something else.
I mean, back there, you know, West Virginia, East Kentucky, that's where I cut my teeth, man. And you just can't run trash. If you're going to run trash, all you will do is run trash, because as many bears as there are, there's more deer and more coyotes. And I've just hard, and then with the coon hunting, if you run trash, you disqualified. So, you know, trash ain't got nothing.
So it's not like you can easily verify that a lot. So
yeah, you got to on purpose. You got to set it
3 miles ahead of you.
Yeah, you got to set it up on purpose to break trash. And that's the same way I do it here. The way I figure, there's plenty of lions, bears, bobcats, and grays. They can run any of that. They want to run a fox, they'll catch it, tree it, or whatever. Bobcat, they'll catch it, or it'll get away. Lion, they'll catch it or get away. Bear, they'll catch it or it'll get, on the rest. Whatever. But they can run all four of those things, and I won't say nothing to them. If they run something else, we're not doing that.
Biggest thing here that drives me nuts, and I don't deal with them like Jared deals with the Lakota Monday down there, but javelina. I can't stand damn javelina. Those I know they usually break a dog once, but I've heard so many, and I almost had a close call. I had a dog that got banged up, and when they shaved her to stitch her up, they could see the blood flowing through her jugular vein. I mean, they said that dog was one stick poke on the walk out from being done for. And my neighbor just down the road, he had his best dog. He had one. He got it into it with the javelina, and it nicked his jugular vein. He was tying his sweater around his neck and almost choking him out to the point where he'd stop the bleeding and he'd run as fast as he could for about 30 seconds. He'd count in his head. And then he'd stop. He'd let the dog breathe, and he'd cinch it back up and get to sprinting. Yeah, and
it's either blood or oxygen, buddy.
Right,
blood or oxygen.
Yeah, you get one or the other. It was that kind of option, and he made it almost just before the vet, and he said he bled out because he couldn't hold him when he was driving as good as he could, and everything, and trying to let him breathe, and he passed out. But it was, it's like those things. I don't understand them. Especially not being from Arizona, from living here my whole life, they're a tough thing to understand why they're necessary. I mean, to me, they're coyote and lion food. I don't even know if the coyotes mess with them.
They're not even predators.
Yeah, right. They're kind of a strange animal, and I'm just unsure what the purpose of them is.
And they're mean.
For Arizona Fish and Game to be able to make money off of the tags, but yeah. They're a tough customer. That's one thing. Obviously coyotes, I don't like that either. I don't let them play around with coyotes. I never really had a big coyote problem. I don't know if I've just gotten luck of the draw or what, but my biggest problem definitely since I've been in Arizona, and it's not a consistent problem, but it happens maybe once a year, is javelina. And they're just
Brett Vaughn, he loves chasing them javelina every time. They chase him. That's no lie. Watch his videos. Those javelina come after you. I've never seen someone that had javelina attack somebody on a mule so much than Brett.
Yeah.
So,
freaking.
I had
those things.
The only problem up here, we don't have javelina like down there. And then when I hunt 39 and 40, there's not a lot of javelina. But I tell you what, when I get into Tonto Basin and all that area, holy moly. That's the worst I've been in the javelina.
I look at their natural range on the, as far as Fish and Game is concerned, and they're not really supposed to be up by me, up in the Williams area, and yet I see them quite often.
Do they have an OTC hunt over there all year?
I don't believe in my units they do. Oh. No. I think
they have one up here in 4B. They have one in 39 and 40, I believe. There's a few units. Yep. Yeah.
That's that as far as traffic. My biggest emphasis out here, because I always, no matter where you go, you're gonna have one really tough thing that's gonna either hurt your dogs real bad or kill them. Up north, you got the wolves. Down here you got javelina, and from what I've heard, the Dakota Monday can be quite a problem as well. You got in other places you got different weird, strange things that'll get you. They got in the south they got snakes. Like strange different water snakes. Or I saw that some of the guys in Florida, they lose dogs to alligators. It's like a dog runs around a swamp and stands in the wrong place for too long, and you lose a dog to a gator. So I think no matter where you go, you're gonna have something that you got to worry about.
Yeah, it's called the reservation where I'm at. I had a big porcupine problem where my dogs were getting into them once a week, and those are gone. I don't know why.
Yeah, I've trapped them, and then I'll leave them trapped around the house, and I'll let dogs out every day for a couple days, and go ahead and trash break them that way, because And I've been very, very fingers crossed, knock on wood, all the deals. I've not had a porcupine issue yet. So that is, I've heard guys that have had that problem, and it becomes a very big problem because especially with real gritty dogs, like up north and a lot more guys, real gritty bear dogs, they just love getting into one of those damn
and
things.
they'll chew on them like, and here's some more animal cruelty if anybody wants to charge me. I got to where I was pumping rompum into them and pulling them. Then I got to the point where I figured out if you left them in, pull the big ones out, try to get the ones out of the tongue, whatever, you leave some of those in, give them a shot of penicillin so they don't get no infection. They'll soften up for one, and I soften their food. It takes like 2-3 weeks for them to go away, and they will not. If you leave them in like that, they will not chase another porcupine. Maybe that's, and then you got to talk like your problem, right? Say you're running into javelina and you're burning dogs down, and the older dogs learn a little bit quicker than younger, obviously. But now your older dogs are kind of smart about it, and they're not trailing them, they're not barking at them. Those younger dogs listen to that older dog.
Yeah.
That's why my training now is a lot simpler.
Yeah.
Not easy, but it's a lot simpler because my older dogs aren't running after coyotes and running after. And I think if you're running with dogs like that and you're putting your year-olds down with your 5, 6, 7-year-old, they're learning that. And then, of course, if you have a coyote bedded down, those dogs are trailing, and that coyote jumps up 20 yards away from a bush, them young ones are going to go after it.
Well, that's kind of a good as far as handling when you're, when you have the older dogs, you don't have to handle as much. And when you get started, like Betty talked about, overhandling when you're getting started, I think it's almost kind of necessary because in order to get better when you're first getting started, you need to have dogs that other people want to hunt around, because you need to go find yourself somebody to learn from where you can train your dog off of their older dogs. That'll make your life a lot easier too, and if you don't have a tolerable dog that is at least, going to listen to you when you call and going to get his butt over there the moment that you say, get your butt over here, and essentially doesn't embarrass you, is because that's kind of what you're after with first time out with somebody else who's got better dogs than you, and you're trying to, hey, you're looking for a mentor. You don't want to have a clown of a dog that's just running around that doesn't listen to you or nothing like that. So I think it's almost necessary, and it's kind of the beast of the burden of what it means to get into hound hunting, and it teaches you a lot more too, about because I'll tell you, going into hounds from the bird dog world was like relearning how to walk.
Handling is 110% of the bird dog world.
Right. It's
they have to
everything in.
Hand commands, noise commands, voice commands,
right?
Whistles sometimes.
Even I had hand motions where I could give these dogs that I could. This one of my best labs, I could walk into Home Depot with him right behind me. I'd walk into an aisle and I'd put my hand back just like this, just kind of motion it backwards, like I'd tell him to stop. He'd sit down right there at the end of the aisle. I'd go into that aisle. I'd grab all the things. He'd have people walking around him, other dogs walking around him, all this stuff. And the moment I walked out of that aisle, I didn't have to say nothing. He just follow right behind me and would be right on my heel. And that was the purpose of handling, and when I first got into hounds, I try to handle a hound like a bird dog. That didn't work at all.
Well, you think in your mind, my hound's going to be right there, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say, go catch that cat. I was the same way. And leaving.
I'll be right back, fellas.
Leaving bird. Gotta go make a poopy or what? Leaving the bird dog world is like leaving a Fortune 500 company as a CEO and going and working at McDonald's. When you get into hounds, it's all, you can't sell a hound. I could sell a 6-month-old lab for $4,000. So all he has to do is sit, lay down, fetch, and listen to me. Nothing.
Yep.
You can't sell a 6-month-old hound for $500, unless that thing's catching a lion,
I think, I hunted my labs with my hounds when I first got into hounds because I didn't have enough dogs. And I used to use my labs for blood trailing. that was because we do baited hunts in Idaho as well. And so if client wings one, I'd use those labs for blood trailing, and they turned into some pretty good bear dogs. I mean, they had not near the longevity. If the race got long, those labs were dropping out for sure. But they learned how to tree. They learned how to trail. They go with the hounds. They'd be barking on track. It looked goofier than hell sometimes, and people would laugh at you. They're like, "What the hell is that in your box?" But they worked, and it was just, I had really good labs. I really did, and I was really happy that I was able to kind of cross pollinate, I guess, for lack of better words, to take a lab. But it just showed you what capabilities. If a dog is bred to hunt, it's bred to hunt. You know what I mean? You can teach a lot to a dog, but you can't put the hunt into a dog. You can't stick, and especially with a hound, I mean, the days and freaking weeks sometimes can be so long of, you got to be out there. There's a lot of more instant gratification in waterfowl, where it's pretty easy to go find some birds during the winter. And if you can't find birds, you can buy them.
I get most of those guys that are trained and raise their own, for one.
Right.
For two, I could go to any bridge on the canal. I have 51 miles of canal down south.
Right.
I could go to any bridge and shoot a pigeon.
Right. Yeah. There was
never my dogs.
Never a lack of live game to get, for training a bird dog. But in the hound world, if you can't simulate that live game to a point that is accurate, essentially, which is trapping it and releasing it, it's the only real accurate way. Because even with trash breaking and shooting stuff and dragging it, and that scent isn't the same. There's blood there. There's it's different. It's not the bird.
What do you have to trash break a bird dog on? A rattlesnake?
I mean, you could if you're in rattlesnake country, I guess. Yeah, you don't really worry about trash break. They're breaking bad habits, breaking their breakability. You don't want them to break. You want them to be focused and stoic and sitting there and waiting for that bird and quiet. Because you can't even, if you have a dog that's sitting there whining on the line,
you're looking around. You want them to look at your shotgun.
Yeah, you want them to be looking directly out all the time, looking for what's falling. But if the dog's sitting there even making a noise, you're losing points right there. That dog it can't sit there. It has to be stoic as can be. The hound world, the stoicism comes in the day-to-day grind that it is. It's a constant push. No matter, even if you're hunting the snow, like we talked about, snow can be horribly hard. You
snow
get
sucks.
Over a week where you have not a lick of moisture more, but tons of wind, and that's crusty snow where you'd rather have dirt. 100%. I've hunted in Wyoming with those conditions, and we were praying that it would either snow again or get warm enough that we'd have some dirt or mud to look at, and those conditions can be incredibly tough. Like, we kind of talk down on snow hunting, and I think, it's just because it's, we're talking about good condition snow hunting. That's a whole different ballgame. You put those bad conditions on, and you have a whole different aspect on your hands right there. You got to go with those dogs. You got to find some little tiny dimple, just the same as you would as you're looking through a riverbed for a dimple in the sand, and that scent, I believe, I don't even think it holds just as if it holds at all. And sometimes, I think your dogs are maybe smelling if that cat's walked long enough on that icy snow, it's cut up his feet enough that it's getting a little bit of scent through that. But I mean, I've had days of, where you put a dog down on a track that you think is good in the snow, and the dog just looks at you and is like, that's cool. What are we doing now? It's just, it's a total different aspect when you take out the good conditions of it all. So
I tell you what, I tried the snow this past winter one time, and I will take crack of daylight, tracking a wash from last night every time over that damn snow. That was, they pushed it. It's the slowest they ever moved was in the snow. Mm-hmm. And then get it up in the thick pines, and I reckon it jumped, and they just don't know how to tree stuff they can't see, because everything they ever treed was in a friggin' mosquito on a rock. So get up in there get one of them big thick trees in that thicket, and she was just like buggered around and couldn't find it. But no, I'll take the dirt any day of the week. The snow was not. It was cold and wet and slickery, and they're moving slow as snail shit.
It
No,
has
I'll
its own.
take
It
the
has
dirt.
its own challenges. You know what I mean? And like you have the challenges of having the equipment for one. I mean, you can go dirt hunt on your feet like Jared has in the last 4 years. You know what I mean? And like a lot of us are more sane, so we go ahead and decide to get a mule or something like that of the such. But
I bet that's
You
great.
up north,
I
you
bet that's
can't
so
even freaking get out there and go hunt if you don't have a snowmobile at bare minimum. I mean, you could try your butt off, and you know what I mean. But after a good snow, you're not going to get that rig through there, and they shut down a lot of the roads, and so they're to tracked vehicles only, and so you have to have a snowmobile. So there you go. There with that, then you got to build yourself a dog sled to haul your dogs around, or something to attach a dog box to the back, some sort of rig, there. Then you got to get your butt up at midnight because everybody and their freaking mother is going to get up at that time, or shortly after.
they got minions. They got minions out there running all night long.
I tell you what I would have gave for a pair of skis, cross country skis. That would have been the ticket.
But that works.
We've
done that.
I was trying to tromp through that shit in my boots.
Yeah.
And I was just wishing I had my skis, because
snowshoes and cross country skis are real value, and especially the skis for cutting tracks and the snowshoes for following the dogs. But I mean that snow hunting, it's not. I've had it it's been so iced up where you had to use the cleats on the bottom of the snowshoes just to get your butt up the hill, and that was a scary day. That day we turned loose, real nice lion we caught. We start going up the hill. We're having to use the cleats of the snowshoes to get up there. We get about 3/4 of the way up the hill, and there's a couple of softer spots in the snow, and I can see fresh wolf tracks. And we're walking, and we go from, we're just kind of working our way into, hey guys, I'm leaving you, and I'm hauling my butt in there as fast as I can. I ran, I don't know, probably about a half mile to the tree, roughly. And as I'm coming in there, I see the wolves circling around the dogs, trying to figure out their way of approach to them. And you just start firing, and you just do what you can to. And we'd always keep, you can get an umpteen amount of wolf tags back then in Idaho and keep a whole pile of them in your pocket, and you just start shooting. And and we've had that's one thing I don't think. Obviously, we don't talk about it because we don't deal with them down here. But up in the north, dealing with those wolves is a whole different ballgame. And you gotta. And as we're talking about handling, having a dog that has a good recall when you've got something like that in the area that's going to tear your whole pack up is a hell of a thing. And being able to haul your dogs out of a drainage when they're down there and they're working a cold trail, because we will eat cold trail and lions a lot out there, even in that snow conditions goes to crap. You're cold trail, and I've had 12-14 mile days on my feet in the snow, with snowshoes on and hating your life through it. It's just a different type of hate is all. And you get to a point where wow, all of a sudden those dog track turns to a lot bigger, and it's a wolf track. You want to be able to call your dogs out of there. You want them to know you well enough that you can go, hey, get your ass out of that bottom, because if not, we're going to have a lot bigger problems. And we've all heard the horror stories of guys losing packs and things like that. And I think a lot more of it happens at the tree than it does on the trail, but that can, if they get them strung out and whatnot, they can start picking them off, and that's never good either. And that's the other thing too, even lions up there, they're a lot meaner than they are down here. They are a lot meaner. We've had it where lions have strung dogs out because they're used to dealing with the wolves, and they'll string dogs out and they'll take 2 or 3 out, before they decide to go ahead and get up over the next ridge and get on out of the country. Like it's a lot different aspect to it. And I think handling in that country, because, there's it, like we go back to, it depends on what you hunt. Guys that pretty much strictly bear hunt, very little handle on their dogs. They want their dogs to load up, get back, and know their name. And that's pretty much about it.
They want to run 100 miles an hour.
Right.
And that's the difference I know on my dogs. When I'm running bear, it's like letting a kid go to grandma's house for a week, or step or the other parent's house for the summer, right? They come back and they're horrible, and
They're
that's how it
terrorists.
is. That's how it is when I'm running bears and lions together.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
and like I know a lot of guys that they just have it's a preference of having a dog that's all go, and I think that that's a good thing. You know, like you get a bear dog that isn't all go, they're not going to catch a bear up in that country where those bear are getting dogged down day after day, and they're just leggy and they can go as long as the day is long. You know, you can't have a dog that has a pause. You have to have a dog that is full charge all the way. Derek, you'd love it. You'd freaking love it.
He does. Look, you're getting excited about it already.
That's your country. I'd take you up to freaking North Idaho, and you'd just be, wetting your pants with how excited you'd be, because everything it's a screaming race, but you're listening to your dogs out there. You're not hunting with your dogs the same way that you do here. You got to know how to run a GPS. You got to know how to work a road.
I'd like to go hunt those pressure bears with some Lycas. That's what I'd like to do.
I have a buddy that runs the elk hounds.
Oh, you do you?
Yep.
Look, he's getting excited. Look at him.
Get up. I want to talk to that guy if he makes puppies, because I want one.
Yeah,
I love hunting those. I got a cross right now, and he's great on the bears. He gets bored with lions because he don't catch them quick enough. He ain't got a whole lot of leg for a long race, but if he's talking, he's looking at it. So if his bark indicator is going off, he's looking at whatever it is. He likes lions if he can bushwhack them, but he don't like a trail one. He'll quit trailing one and go bumping around canyons, try to jump something. But
that goes to your handling too, right? How many dogs have you had? You don't want a dog you have to shock. You want a dog that you tone and it says, I'm turning around and going home.
If I can't recall my dog at max range of my GPS, I don't want that dog, because I can't have something that hard-headed. I guess I could probably get away with it out here, but in my head, I can't afford it, because if I need them to stop right now, which up there, like get near that res, they got to come back or get down by Old Mexico. I'm scared to death they're going to tree across the line and I'm going to get busted going to get my dogs. Yeah. So
you got to be fast. That's where you got to be fast. Trust me, I've been on that res about 350 miles an hour.
The res don't scare me as much as Old Mexico does for some reason. Like in my head, like I get within a quarter mile of that border and I'm hitting that tone.
Let's just ask Benny about the res 20 years ago. The res now, it's not so bad now. There's still some whatever corruption on it. In the old days, I know guys who've got caught on that res. I'm talking 10 feet on the res, and that ranger held their dog and said, $250, bring it to me or I'll shoot your dogs.
It was worse than that. There were people on the res, even if you were over there hunting legally, there were people on the res that would steal your dogs. The word got out if you had decent dogs, and if you had decent dogs, like halfway dogs, you could come home without any dogs. And sovereign nation is exactly that, a sovereign nation. So, yeah, today it's a whole lot more civil. But when John Clump had some cows on the res and he went over there on the San Carlos, he went over there to get them, and they caught him over there, and they confiscated his cows and his horses and his saddles and his dogs and his pickups and his semi.
Why'd they do that? Why? Because they could.
Because they can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't stand that. You want to be a sovereign nation, then don't take U.S. tax subsidies. Don't take them.
Oh, you're rabbit holing now. That's gonna...
Well,
they don't. But they don't all take. I mean, people think that, like the Navajos, for instance, that all the Navajos live off of U.S. tax subsidies, and that's not accurate.
I mean the government of the res, not the people themselves. I mean the government gets federal funds like a state. So if you want to be like a state, be like a state.
But then you're talking about politics and corruption, and there's nobody any worse than the government that we're in.
Oh,
and it's all there. Game wardens corrupt. Some are good, some are bad. Houndsmen corrupt. Some are good, some are bad.
People suck generally.
Your politicians, like, it's there, man. It's there everywhere, and that's why we're in a mess we're in. Look at Colorado. You got a dude who's running the state whose husband is telling him how to run the state.
Right.
His husband don't like the hunting. so that's not going to bleed down. Obviously, if your wife came to you right now and says, I really don't want you hanging out with that guy, like, come on, man, cause a big enough problem, you're going to start telling that guy, man, I got to paint my house.
Mhm.
Oh, I got to rake my dog kennels, and that's the exact same thing that happens. And
that's happened in every administration. Is
everywhere, every administration,
look at Nancy
every
Reagan.
organization, every name it, and it's there.
Oh yeah.
But to get back, we was talking about time. Arizona, if you have bear dogs, you're only going to run 3 months.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
August, October, November, December, if it stays open. And
yeah, if you can't travel, then you're down to maybe a week or two, depending on where you're at.
And I don't want to go all the way over to 18 or 7 or that, because if I lose a dog,
right,
then I have to go back to, so that $500 trip is going to cost me another 100 in fuel, another 100 in fuel, another 100 in fuel. So I like where I'm at. Everybody knows who I am. I know who everybody is. When a dog comes up and it says, David, I know who it is. That's how I met most of the houndsmen I know, is saying, hey, I got your dog.
Traveling hard with dogs too, and like, especially if you're going to do it, if you're traveling with mules and dogs, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about access to what you need to be able to camp out with mules and dogs in a drought state. Let's just go bare minimum. Let's go bare minimum. Let's just say you're a hardcore that sleeps on the top of your dog bag. You need your sleeping bag, right? Okay. Now you have to have a good sleeping bag, because the desert, just because it's 90 in the day, that thing's 30 at night, right? As long as you're not down in Phoenix, it stays 90 at night.
Yeah. The water is your most important thing. You can barely live on food, you and your dog. Yeah. You shoot a jackrabbit, feed them. But so you have to carry at least 50 pounds for the week if you got 10 dogs. Well, probably a couple bags. And then if you're taking mules, right?
Yep.
How many bags of hay or pellets are you going to have? I typically try to take pellets if I'm going to stay for a while.
Yeah.
I'll take a couple bells on top of my trailer to just like throw them a bell, and then I'll feed them pellets. Right. But man, just me going down to Jared's, he had people telling him, who's that Beverly Hillbilly guy coming out of there? Right. I was down there for a week. Oh yeah. I didn't run out of water. I had 100 gallons of water plus 15 on my truck. I don't want to run out of water, and I don't use that water. I still bucketed water out of the well.
Yeah, I didn't have to use you better have a water supply good and close, because I mean, my 4 mules will drink 100 gallons in a day and a half if it's hot.
Oh yeah, because them sons of bitches won't water out of a creek or water out of a water. It's like, come on, man, just take your fill now. Take your fill now, please.
Well, that's where it's tough, when you're, especially if you're planning on staying a while, finding. That's why I like to talk to so many people, is building those relationships up where somebody might allow you to come and stay on their lease or stay on their spot and, put your mules somewhere close to water where you can at least go and, you got a short little jaunt to get them watered or whatever it may be every day, because that is the hardest thing I think about hunting in the Southwest is water. Purely for your dogs. I mean, if you think about it, if your dogs are running hard, you're burning, if you got 10 dogs, 12 dogs in camp, you're burning 7 gallons a day at least. Yeah.
This is why everybody's like year long, but I'm going to tell you what, be thankful you got June and July, because what should you be doing in June and July? You should be on your buggy, hitting every road, walking every canyon, finding that water with your onx.com if anybody wants to. You know what I mean, though? June and July. You should really, for one, it's too hot to pursue. Or you're going to go out at 3. It gets light by 4:30. You're going to run till 9, maybe 10, and hopefully you're not busting into those dogs take off, and you're trying to find them in a 100 degree day, 110 degree day, because just because it was 80 in the morning, 60 in the morning, man, it could hit 90 an hour later.
I don't even. It's either you're gonna catch it or you're not, kind of deal.
So take advantage of it, right? Take advantage of June and July. Get on your buggy, get on your bike, your moped, whatever you're using out there, and let's go back to the old days. In the old days, there was no roads.
Right.
The roads got you there, The road you made got you to the tree. The road, you could take a dirt bike. Could you imagine getting on a dirt bike right now and following your dogs across country, going around mountains up and down?
You could.
That's what they did. That's what those guys did. They could drive across forestry. They could drive across.
But we can't do that now, right?
No, you can't leave the road.
Yeah.
There's some places up
Not
in
illegally.
areas you can't even camp off the road. I'm lucky where I'm at. I can camp anywhere off the road I want. There's some places there's designated, and it's coming. It's coming. The whole public land thing, that's a whole nother conversation, rabbit hole. I see everybody's probably seen the post.
Yeah.
It's coming back that they're selling things in the superstition. There's young Arizona. I had a guy text me today. I'm surprised he's not on here talking about it, reminding me. Because I'm horrible about bringing stuff up. But young Arizona, they're getting rid of some of that land. And you know what that does? Young ain't a poor person's place. If you have land there, you already bought it there, or your grandfather. Now, because some rock star comes in and buys it for a god awful amount, everybody thinks, just like housing. My house is worth $150,000. I could sell it for $500 right now. Drop it. I could drop it tomorrow for $350. I only paid $70 for it. So the times have changed to how you can handle, right? Back in the day, Louisiana hunting, Jeremy, you could hunt all that private land. No one gave a shit. They wanted them coons out of because they were getting in their attics and chewing their wires. Now
nobody owned. It didn't start until like the 50s, even when people started kind of slightly owning hounds for leisure and for hobby, and it was all for purpose before that, and then right around that after the Great Depression and all that stuff kind of settled down and the economy started to recover, people could have something for a hobby and have something for leisure, and they were able to start doing that. And even then, you listen to some of the old books and stuff, they talk about there was competition and everything back then as well, too.
Yep. When I was a kid, like the real fur hunters kind of went away back east that I noticed. Because when I was a little kid, like a lot of guys had dogs and they fur hunted for money. And then the market plummeted whenever I was probably 15-ish, 12, something like that. And then you just quit seeing boxes. Everybody had a dog. And then I get driving and there's a lot less fellas. Still like a lot more than you see here. But, I mean.
I'm in a hound area. So I see 2-3 a day even now. Like you'll see.
But I mean,
depends on where you're at. It really it's very particular. Even I remember my first time in Arizona, I came down with a dog box. I went to go hunt in Prescott or just outside of Prescott, and I went to some place to go get some food. And the lady's going, "What are those in the back of your vehicle?" I'm like, "They're dogs." She's like, "Why are they in that box? What is that?" And I'm like, "It's a hound box."
Let me tell you about a ritual we had, and I killed a bear. We put it on top dog box. We go through town. I had to go through town to get home, and I stopped at Filiberto's. There's one certain one. We have 2 of them here. 3. I stopped there. Every employee came out and looked at it. And every time we killed a bear, we would go there and they would come out and look at it. They loved it, and I think it
invites conversation. We killed a bear last year, and my buddy and I were driving through. We went, put it on his dog box, put the bear in his dog box, and went to the gas station in town, and we stopped to grab some after, celebration beers. And this lady's coming by, and she's got her son in one of those onesies, but it's like a bear, like the head is like a little bear and whatnot. And she goes, "Oh my gosh!" And she looks at him. We first were like, "Oh my gosh!" We're like, "Oh shoot!"
Here we go.
Reaction we're gonna get. She goes, "Can I take a picture with my son with the bear?" And we go, "Absolutely." So we put
get him to climb that tree, and I'll get him the trio.
It could barely sit up, and it's just sitting there, and it's sitting right next to the bear. We took a photo, and we sat there and talked with them, and they were like, and they were just super happy, and they're like, "Oh, this is great," and they're like, "Can't wait to show this, the kid that in 10 years," and yada yada. And it's like, what a cool, experience. And people don't know, because I'm telling you, I've hunted my entire life. My uncle was an outfitter. I grew up in northwestern Ontario in a very small town, very isolated. There's not much to do but hunt and fish. I've known about hunting. That's all it's been my entire life. All my family's hunted. I didn't know anything about hound hunting until I had gotten out of the military and I went to college, and I met a kid there who, when I was in my forestry program, that he hunted lions with hounds. And I had not heard about it before that. I've been, if you've been in the hunting world your entire life up to, whatever I was there, 23, I think, and you haven't heard about hounds, there's a reason we're not talking about it enough. People don't want to share. It's kind of an insider, good old boys club. People need to know about this. How many times have you met somebody that you tell them you have a dog that trails bears and lions, and they go, what? And they're just mind blown. Their mind is completely blown.
Let me tell you a story about a forest guy. This is a guy who went out, drilled a tree, told you how old the tree was. I think my trailer is falling. We could tell you how old the tree was. I stopped and said, where's all the bears? He says, there's bears here? I said, yeah, it's the forest. Okay, we go out. We got lucky. We go out. We hit a mountain. We catch a bear. 3 hours later, we come back. I have the bear on my Suburban. I have an ASM Suburban. I had a rig rack on the front bumper. I had that bear. It was about a 300-pound bear, but the thing was only 5 foot. But his damn ankles were just we called him the Schwarzenegger bear because he was just. I skinned him out, and that thing was ridiculous. And that area produces those 2-3-year-old bears.
Yeah.
We stopped back by dogs. We stopped back by, and he's like, where did you get that? I said, right 3 miles this way. This is a guy who spends his life in the forest. Apache Sitgreaves Forest, one of the best bear hunting places in Arizona. And he's never seen a bear. Never seen a bear. Now that's a biologist, though. A tree biologist, right? He was there to do his job.
I pretty much have an identical story from the same thing, but a guy lived on the corner, and he was outside. I think he was just raking rocks or something like that, whatever. And I saw him, and I said, hey, good morning. And I just, sarcastically hollered. I said, you seen any bears? He said, I ain't seen a bear around here in 15 years. We went out, killed a bear. I came driving by. I go, here, now it's been about 1 minute since you've seen a bear, because he's sitting there looking at it, and we're sitting there talking, and he's like, I can't believe this. He's like, he goes, where did you get that? I pointed at the tree because you could see it from where he was at, and he goes, I go, there. And he goes, you're kidding me. And I go, honestly, I said, I cut his track walking down this dirt road that was down below. Probably, it was, I don't know.
Came from your trash can, guy. From your trash can.
Right. And it was like 300 yards from his house where the dirt road was. And it's just, but people don't know. And he goes, you caught that with those dogs? And I go, yeah. He goes, man, that's incredible. And they.
Whoops.
Froze up on it. Good stories always freeze.
Every
we
time.
can go all night, and a good story will freeze. I think the common public is just ignorant to what's in the forest. They see you on TV. I've been telling, we've had some shootings, and we've had this and that. And I tell people, it don't only happen on TV. These are real people. Like, there's real people that are getting shot, and it's your neighbor, it's your family member. These bears, people just see these bears. There he is.
Damn it, Chris, tell your 14 kids to get off the Starlink.
Hey, I'm on my own. I have 2 Starlinks.
Bandwidth.
No, I have 2 Starlinks. Hey, you're the only one that froze up on us. We're still talking. I have 2. I have to have my own out here because they will. And right now, my wife's not in a good mood, so they're on their tablets and phones. I say, get on your tablet phone and disappear. And I could leave town for 3 weeks, come back, and they'll be on that tablet and phone in the same spot. And they'll be like, hey, we're hungry. I'm like, God dang, yeah, Nate. But no, I think the common public is ignorant to the fact of what's out there. And then who puts out all the propaganda about it? Not us. I'm trying. But I haven't done a good job because I'm stupid. I'm ignorant to the fact of how do I take 8 million people in Arizona, and there's only 100, maybe 200,000, 350,000 that hunt here, maybe more. Let's say 500, but that's only less than when you only got a couple percent. How do you
and
get the
people
other
here know about hounds because it's I think I'll take this back.
bad media?
Well, but I think people know more about hounds now because social media is available. Back in back when I first learned about hounds, people weren't posting these things. Nobody had all this stuff. And let's take that back to, as a handler, it's your responsibility to post clean content if you're going to post it that people can see it and get introduced to. Because if you think about it, if it's the very first time anybody's ever been introduced to hound hunting and they open up a post and it's 10 dogs just shredding a bear or
in a river, in
or
a creek,
a lion's just beating crap out of some dogs or whatever it may be. Perception is everything. It is everything.
First impression.
Right. People don't need to know the facts when they first look at something. They just look at it and they react. They feel an emotional, charge, that bruise inside of them, and they go with that because that's their gut reaction. Some people are calmer. Some people can make those, rash decisions, but if we got rid of social media for a year as far as hound hunters go, we'd probably have a lot less arguments on the table against us. It's probably our biggest, nemesis right now.
I would caveat that and say that if we got rid of our presence on social media for a year, we might lose it. Because as much as we don't
everybody has to be off social media.
The antis don't get mad at us because of what we post. They use what we post to try to make their agenda happen.
Right.
It's the regular people is what we influence with.
They're already mad at us. They're already mad at us.
What we need is more of what Chris does. More of the Kirk Prices of the world that takes the whole world on a bear hunt, stuff like that. Like, I don't agree with everything everybody does, but those guys like that you guys are doing good things. And we need more of us doing that. We need more bigger content creators being too.
Well, shooting a bear out of a tree is not a big deal. It falls, hits the ground. You're not seeing Kirk Price's stuff on the social media of the antis. I don't say bad guys. They're just people that have a passion too.
Yeah, right. But we need more of that stuff, I think. But like if we had 10 guys that were doing that, that's what we need.
But it's the guys that are showing the stuff falling off a cliff. The guys that are showing I just watched a video, I think it was today or yesterday. There's a bear in a creek, and the dogs
that.
And it's just like
river.
If we have to talk about it, then we know it's wrong. And like, if you have to question yourself, if you're sitting there and you're getting ready to post something and you ask one of your buddies, or you have to ask yourself, should I post this? What's the reaction I'm going to get? You probably shouldn't,
Exactly.
And it saves us all a lot of heartache. Send it to your buddies. We all got text messages. We all got different forms. Keep it private. You know what I mean? I love a good gritty dog video when it comes directly from my friends. When I see it on social media, when I see it where anybody in the world can see it or share it, you don't know the day that somebody's wife that owns, the husband owns the news station in a big city, and they stumble upon this video of a bear getting torn apart by dogs, or whatever video that they see that makes them have an emotional reaction, and they say, hey, husband, I need you to put this on the news and do a negative light story on this.
Yep.
All that does is put a huge damper on everything we're fighting for, and we are in a fight.
I have a prime example of that. The reporter, Wildlife for All did so we did that interview I did, took her out hunting. The Wildlife for All comes back and calls me a big liar because that lady worked for me under PI. That lady's never been hunting. That lady's I should have recorded the whole thing and made a YouTube out of it because she was, when I let the dog, I get out. I said, I'm going to let him out. She's like, she was truly afraid.
Well, she called me to interview me, and I spoke with her, and she told me everything. She goes, I could not believe that he just let the dogs out of the box, and they didn't just cause havoc.
And she has Labrador. She has bird dogs, champion bird dogs.
Right. Yeah, she thought that they were just going to cause a wreck in the world and make everybody's day more difficult. And she spoke nothing but great things about, and it was all in surprise. She had no expectations going into it, which I think a great reporter does. But the fact that she went into that, she took it all in, and she went, I had such a misconception of what being a houndsman is like, of what these dogs are like, of the type of, what she talked about when you whooped at your dogs and they all came running. She's like, I couldn't believe it. She's like,
no, she said, how are you getting them back?
Yeah.
When I let them out, she's like, what are they going to do? They're going to run around and shit, and they're going to smell, and they're going to piss on each other's heads. And that's just what they do. I said, I'm going to let them clean out. I'm going to run them down the road. She goes, but how are you going to get them back? And I didn't even carry my GPS. I had it. It was in my truck, even when we treed. I'm like, oh, damn, I didn't even bring my GPS. She goes, well, how are you going to get them off? I said, leave it. We don't want it. Let's go. Good job. Good job. They're all let's go. Let's go. I do it on bears too.
Yeah.
And she said, how are you going to get those dogs back? I said, oh, and they all ran in. I said, load up. Let's go. Get in the truck. And I'd only had them out for like a few minutes, and they jumped in. And I said, that's how you do it. And then I let them back out, and we roaded them.
Yeah, and it can be taken in a way, that article that those people put out that said, she was connected with you essentially to debunk her article and blah.
You know how many people that are related to those people that write these articles, Russ McSpadden, the Michelle girl from Wildlife for All, which Wildlife for All is a big liar. They lie, and I can say that legally. I sent them a letter. I need to check. I haven't checked. And if that update is still on, they're going to get a formal letter from another one of my friends that did more school than I did to get his bar. That's all I'm going to say.
One of them letters you got to sign for.
One of them letters you got to sign for. And I wasn't rude about it. I sent him an email and said, hey, take that down. It's not true. Here's the truth. They put on there, I went to work for her. I quit my CMW. I quit AWDA. And then I went to work for MKO. There is no such investigator company owned by the lady that's called MKO in the state of Arizona. I showed them all this stuff. And that's the problem. Most people don't want to engage. I'm engaging in stuff right now on Facebook that's about murdering, and it's crazy. And I got people trying to come at me. The difference between me, and I've had other people say, oh no, don't put that. And I'm all, send. What are they going to do? So if Wildlife for All, and they're watching, if they want to play these stupid games, they can play these games, but I'm going to call them out. And if it's true, I'll get on here and say it's true. Did she work for me? Yes. Did she ever hunt bears or run with dogs or anything? Absolutely not. Did she have any clue about it? She didn't even want to go. I made her go. I said, listen, I'll do a sit down, but sit down is stupid. I took the guy from Arizona Republic out. Same deal. Was he kind of towards their, I would imagine he was a little bit towards their side and he wanted to come out and embarrass me. The thing is, I tell these people up front, write what you want, but make sure it's true and don't misquote me.
At the end of the day, they don't want their minds changed, and they're not going to change their minds. It's not really
no, but you got to channel them to where they know if they write something stupid about you, you're going to call them out.
Absolutely. I think we've gone backwards as a society because we've quit calling each other out on stuff. We'd probably all be a lot better houndsmen if we were like Jared and just fired at the hip and said, hey, this is stupid. We're not doing the right thing. And even as much as you don't want to hear it, at the end of the day, you go home and you think about that a little bit and you're like, shit, they were right. And I think that's just, we all got to calling people out on things that are wrong are just, it's a great thing. It's a great thing to do. I think we need to do it more often, but obviously know what you're talking about when you call somebody out on something too. Don't just start throwing shit from the hip.
Absolutely. Don't just start shit. I think my last sentence to them was, contrary to belief, what happens on Facebook isn't necessarily true, guys. That's what I told them. Just because you read it on Facebook, I put under AWJ that I was in janitorial maintenance. How come they didn't?
Cleaning up dog shit all day.
Yeah, that's what I do. Clean up dog shit. So, and then Jeremy said, Jeremy said something here just a little second ago. Same rig we got. Every time we rigged out in the forest, you know where those rigs were? And he wanted to run them, but I know better. And they were out of private property in the middle of nowhere because them bears were coming in and out of those trash cans.
Yeah.
Not trash cans. You see bear shit full of bird seed, sunflower seed. Yeah,
that's the way it is in Sonora too. Right there, you get into the park, and there's a little strip of private, and you'll rig there just all the way down through there because they get in there eating that bird seed and the cat food and the bullshit.
And what the other side don't understand is we have rules.
Yep.
If someone's not following the rules, that's not our problem. It is our problem. They make it our problem, but it's not my fault. Well, I don't tell some guy to go start a rig at 2 a.m. I don't tell him to do that and let his dogs go.
I think it's kind of like I would, in the venture of following rules, let's talk about following rules a little bit. If you follow somebody around with a camera their entire life, you're going to get them doing something bad.
Whether it's smacking your dog.
Right.
Hitting
no matter
your kid.
Who they are. It could be like somebody like a Russ McSpadden or a me or a Benny or whatever. Or you're going to catch somebody speeding or, just something, right? You can always find something. Easiest way to avoid all that, keep it off of the internet.
Don't post.
Keep it off the internet.
And it's hard. It's hard not to post.
And I get it. We all want to share stuff, but you know what? If you don't got enough friends that you can send it to, go make some. Go to a freaking Boy Scout club or something. I don't know, but quit posting it on the damn internet. You don't need to post every lion you catch. It's like leave a little mystery in it. It's like nobody wants to date you if they know everything about you. They want some mystery in there. Like
if you see her naked the first time,
right?
Who cares what she looks like in clothes, right?
Yeah, it's like it's just. There's so much information that can be grabbed by so easily now by just Googling something or whatever it may be. The point of being a houndsman is to get out there and experience it. Put your boots on the ground. If you want people to know more about what you do, take them with you. That way you can be there and you can explain.
And don't let them record.
Right.
See, I would disagree with that. We need more of like I always bring up Kirk because he does such a good job. But we need more of careful documentation of what we do like that. Because that's why I love like Josh Michaelis, what he's doing with Cane Stream. They're televising live coon hunts. Like that's going to do good things for the regular person.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. I think that there's a healthy way to do it for sure. Yeah. But the healthiest stuff sometimes isn't the coolest stuff to share.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to weed that out, where you go, this looks really, really cool, but I'm not going to put it out there for everybody.
Yeah. We gotta start making posts that are good for the sport that we love and stop making posts to make us look like we're cooler.
Right.
When guys quit trying to grow a bigger what have you because of their social media, that'll go a long way.
I have friends that even in because the coyote guys, they get help, especially the guys that are running sight hounds. You know what I mean? Where they're burning them down in the dump boxes and they're dumping them on them. They get help. I message those guys and I know them directly. I've sold dogs to a couple of them, things like that in the past. I talk to them. I just go, hey man, look, no disrespect, but that video is going to cause us a lot of problems. And I just tell them straight up, man to man, how I think it's going to be. And 99.9% of the time I get a positive response. Hey man, thanks for, at least saying something directly to me. Thanks for not, commenting some crappy shit on the side. Call, message a guy. Hey man, like I get what you do. I love what you do. Can we take that down so we don't have more problems? It's just an easy conversation, but everybody you know, pull them out, quit tucking them between your legs, you know, lack of better word.
It's the not easy conversations that I think scare people off. You know what I mean? You know what would fix that? If everybody bought Value Pack Dog Food.
There's
Wait, Benny's leaving. Benny's going night-night.
See you later,
Yeah, I got
Benny.
a long day tomorrow. Take care.
You start talking about outlaw stuff, and Benny has to bail, man.
Yeah, I got to jump.
See ya. Thanks, Benny.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think, and you hear those guys, you tell them not to post. Well, I can't post nothing because I run a different piece of game. No, just cut it off right before they catch it. And then put your grip and grin on at the end of it. You just edit that video a little bit. They don't need to see, because little Janice on 3rd Street might really like to see your dogs run, but she don't want to see that coyote get stretched out by them 140-pound staghounds. She don't need to see that.
Here's the thing, too. You know, we want to talk about, like, a little bit of censorship is good, right? A little bit. We don't need to be completely censored in life, but a little bit of censorship is good. You don't want your 8-year-old, 10-year-old boy, whatever, you know, let's just say, I don't know how old kids get phones nowadays because I don't have any, but let's say even a 12-year-old boy, 14-year-old boy, flipping through some sort of social media, and then these AI, you know, sexual ads are popping up, right? They're popping up, and then these kids are getting intrigued. Just as much as you don't want your 12-year-old daughter seeing a bear get torn to hell by a bunch of dogs because it happens to pop up on her feed. Mind you, that is parental, you know, censorship on their own hands and things like that. But at the end of the day, let's like be a little bit classier than just jumping to post the first thing that's going to get a gut reaction out of somebody. You know, we can be better than that. We truly, I think, you know, a lot of the guys, if you're a true houndsman, you put a lot of pride, you put a lot of work into your dogs, you put a lot of work into your kennels, you put a lot of work into your dog boxes, everything that goes along, your training and everything. So why have so much pride in that to just throw it out the window and go be a damn redneck and to say, screw it, and I'm going to go post something that it's going to cause more headaches for everybody and might take your rights away.
First Amendment.
Right. And it might take your rights away. And you know, there's the you know, the slock masters of the world that they have to get this big reaction from somebody, you know, every time they post something, and that's their thing. And there's people out there that love that crap, but leave it for them. You know, leave it for them. We can do better. We really can. It costs a lot of money just to own a hound. And we all know that. We all work our butts off, and we're pretty much living lesser lives because we want to own our dogs. So why go out there and post something that's going to make your life that you've worked so hard for go away? That makes no sense. You know, just because somebody gives you a hammer doesn't mean you got to thump yourself in the head with it.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's just, yeah.
Richard Fight said, why would you put a dead bear on top dog box right through town? I'm a hunting town, so I don't have a lot, and that's the only way I can get through town, and I had nowhere else to put a dead bear.
And I like that though, because that makes conversations. And like you were talking about that little boy, he'll look at that picture when he's 15, and he might be like, "Man, I want to do that."
Right.
You know how many
pictures that's what that does.
take?
That's what we thought. That's what we thought too, right? When we saw that, it was like we might have just made a feature houndsman right there.
Yep.
You know,
and I think we should drive right to the Circle K with that bear up there. Get you a Coke or Dr. Pepper or something.
But then take time to have the conversation. Don't just sit there and glow with it like, oh, you know, I'm the big guy, I'm pounding my chest while I'm going and doing it. Sit there for a minute. Wait till somebody has a reaction and have a conversation. Go, yeah, you know, we worked really hard. We spent 3 days after this guy, and tell them the story of it all. You know, share that.
I always offer them to go with me.
Yeah.
I always offer people. That. I said, you don't have to shoot
come with me sometime. Yep.
Mm-hmm. I've had deer hunters show up to the trees.
Yeah, I got guys at the gym that I talk with all the time. They've never been hound hunting. They've been hunting other stuff, and they're like, man, I'd always love to do that. I said, hey, let's go sometime. You know, come on, and we'll throw you on a meal. Really? You know, and they're mind blown. And I'm like, yeah, let's go. And you know, it's like they talk to somebody about that invite that they got, and that person gets curious and they want to go learn more. And you know, it's like it's so easy It really is. It's not hard. It's not
Let
hard.
me-
It's an easy answer, and we shoot ourselves in the foot with. It's like, come on, man, we could do better. You know.
Yes,
it's a lot different if I had the bear hanging off my truck with his mouth flopping.
Yeah.
bleeding all over the road or something.
I put it on top of my dog box, laid out.
Yeah.
A lot of times people don't even notice it.
Yep.
They don't even notice it. But I've gotten more great conversations about it, having it on the dog box, you know, and I have to go through town. There's no getting out of it. And I don't go up and down the town. I stop by, and we stop. That's kind of a ritual we do. And we'd go get filibertos after we got a bear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, my town is not Phoenix. Now I've had cops called on me in Phoenix for being at Whataburger, and it's like 80 degrees. And I actually had a dog in the front of my truck when the cop showed up, and I know who called him. I said, that guy right there, probably your RP right there. Like, that's him right there. He's sitting right there looking at my dogs, and he looked in the front of my truck. I was in my first gen flatbed, had a dog box on it. And I had Cece, she was my older dog. She was in the front seat, and she was laid across the console, and her head was like flopped. It looked like she was dead. And I had the windows down, you know, and the cop comes up and he goes, "Oh, what's wrong with that dog?" I said, "She's old and lazy." I said, "Cece." And she like looks up at me and like, goes back. And all the dogs are friendly. I said, "Go tell that guy to come over here. I'll tell him the story." I'd stopped that, walked in, got Whataburger, and was leaving. And I had somebody call the cops. But that's the difference between Sholo, Arizona and Phoenix, Arizona.
Right.
Is you're always in Sholo, out of, let's say, 1,000 people, I probably have on that time of year 3 or 4 that are like that.
You know, one of the things that we could do, because we talk about being on the offense, right? And like we want to be on the offense instead of on the defense all the time. And it sounds weird because we're not these type of people, but we kind of got to break ourselves outside of our comfort zones a little bit in order to get ahead of this fight. And, you know, you see those like Girl Scouts and whatever, Boy Scouts and stuff that sit outside of Walmart or a grocery store, and they sit there with a little booth and they just sit there and they sell their cookies or whatever. Instead of selling something, or even an activist might sit there and do that. Hey, you know, we get some signatures. Why not go out on a day you got nothing to do and sit in a shady spot and sit there with a hound
Take
puppy
your hound
and your old dog and just say, have a little sign behind you and say, "Want to learn about hounds?" You know, something like that. You know, just a little.
I'm working on a brochure right now. It's on my list right there. AWGA brochure that you could pass out too.
Yep. I take my dogs to the mall on a kind of semi basis. About every other off day this summer, I've been taking a hound and walking around the mall and and people stop you like, "Oh, what kind of dog is that?" And "Oh, she's so pretty. What's she do?" And like, cause she catches bears. What? You know, that's so cool. And you show them a little clip or whatever, and they're so excited. Everybody wants to do it. Can you pay to do that? And always, you know, there's guides all over, you know, and
Well, my video
it just instills conversation that you know. I remember the first time. I'll never forget it. I was sitting in my forestry class, and the teacher starts talking. And he goes, you know, because usually it was a Monday or something, and he goes, "And what everybody do this weekend, you know?" And everybody kind of, "Oh, I did this, I did that." And he goes, "Well, let me tell you about my weekend." And he tells us a story about how he went on a lion hunt with one of the students in the class. And I wish I had a picture of my face when, you know, that moment happened, because I was going, you could do what? And I just immediately, I was like, I'm sitting next to that kid today. And I, you know, because I mean, he's an 18-year-old kid, you know, and I'm fresh out of the Army with, you know, different lives, different points in our life. But I'm sitting there and I'm going, wait a minute, what do you guys do? And he, you know, he's that quiet mountain kid, you know, didn't want to give a lot of information, but I was just picking his brain. And as soon as I left class, I'm on YouTube and I'm looking stuff up and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. You know, and I was already in the bird dog world a little bit at that point. And, you know, I'd really delved deep into the bird dog world. And it was kind of an odd situation. I went to, I think I bought something off of like Facebook Marketplace or something. And it was just before I was moving from Colorado to go guide in Idaho, and I go to this guy's house and I pull up and he's got these dog kennels in the back, and I go, "Oh, you got bird dogs?" You know, because you see floppy ears and you figure, oh, maybe it's a pointer or something, right? And you see, and he goes, "Oh no, those are line hounds," and I'm like, you're kidding me, right? And this guy lived less than 5 miles from me. I mean, and on a, like, there's probably 4 houses between mine and his. You know what I mean? It's like down a county road, and I get to talking with him about it a little bit, and I'm like, well, yeah, no, we're the place I'm going, you know, to guide these guys. They run hounds, and then I show up to the outfit that I go to work for, and they've got 20 dogs in a kennel, and they're just, you know, I roll up and I see all these big long-eared walkers, and, you know, all just losing their mind, and I'm in heaven, you know. And I can imagine being a kid at a young age, if I were to have been walking into a grocery store and saw some grown man sitting there with his dogs, and we got to talking, and they told me, you know, something about whatever they did, my interest would have been piqued from a younger age, and I probably would have been looking into a way to get into it at a younger age, you know, and that would have been something that intrigued me. And I'm really glad that, you know, my life turned out the way it did, and I was able to get into dogs. But man, we have so much opportunity to get in front of this fight that we're at. And, you know, this all goes back, I guess, to our subject of being a handler. Not just being a handler also means in this world being a houndsman, being a true houndsman, being somebody who's going to fight the fight, who's going to get off their ass and go do something more to try to benefit our way of life. So that way, the next time the fight comes to our door, because it's probably not going to ever stop. Probably always going to have to keep this going. But the point that it comes, we have so many people behind us that everybody goes, "What are you, stupid? Why would we do that?" You know, we got to make it a brainless decision. And the easiest way to do that is just talk to people. Because it's a lot, I always tell people, it's a lot harder to tell you screw you to your face than it is over social media or a text message or something like that. So if you can sit there and have a true conversation, that person might be a vegetarian and anti-hunter, and they might hate everything that you're saying. But if they had to sit there and listen to somebody explain it to you, they're probably going to a little bit after, and maybe that might develop into something that turns into more. But we're losing opportunities if we don't do things like that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I've took a lot of people hunting that's never been hunting, and they started hunting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just hounds. I mean, just a dove hunter, just getting them out fishing, you know. And like you said, being a handler is not always just about handling the dogs. It's about handling the situation with the dog.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
You know, and you're right. Like we should have booths set up all over the place. There's enough houndsmen that should be doing that.
Yeah.
Public library.
If you're being part
Walmart.
of like even, you know, us being members of AWDA, you know what I mean? Like we could be sending out tasks for everybody, you know, that we can all go, hey, you know, this is our challenge, you know, let's just even say, hey, you know, this is the challenge of the month. You know, go out to your local grocery store, introduce yourself to 10 people, talk about, you know, hounds, or give this brochure out or something like that. And I know it's not something we want to do, but we
don't like people.
We have to do. And there's not something, but you don't want to do it. You're out there, you're putting your time, your money, you're sacrificing things. If all it means for us as members of AWD or whatever houndsman organization you may be a part of, if all it means is stepping up for one day a month to possibly save what you absolutely love, once you do that for your family, once you do that, like if you consider your dog's family, and like a lot of us say we do, once you do that, if it was your wife or your son or your daughter, if it meant one day a month you had to do one thing and you knew 100% sure they'd be safe, and we don't know 100% for sure, but it gives them a hell of a lot better chance, you know. And if
one vote.
Yeah,
that one vote matters.
Right. It absolutely does, because that one vote, if they talk to the right people, and you never know who you're talking to in this world these days, that person could have 100,000 or 1 million people following on their social media. And if they sit there and they go, hey, like that, just like that girl that Doug Boykin or Carl Boykin, got a video of that went all viral on there, and that was goofy as heck. But at the end of the day, that's positive publicity for us.
2 million views.
That's one person that, she looked at that. She had a conversation with the houndsman and was able to probably walk away with a different light on us, because it's a different lifestyle and it's hard to understand. And it's a very, very tough racket to get yourself into. It is one of the hardest, I would say, as far as hunting goes, it's the hardest one to get into. Everything else, deer, elk, bear, whatever, either you buy a plane ticket and a license and a gun and some binos and you can go. Getting into hound hunting is a tough racket to get into. And if we're going to put all this effort into being houndsmen, we need to put some more effort cumulatively, just, even if it's minimal effort, one day, a month, or even one day every couple months, shoot, try to do something to better it.
Or pay somebody to do it, right?
Yeah.
Organization.
Give your money
Utah,
as well.
Nevada.
If you have money and you have the ability to give it, because it's only going to something that you can't do. It's saving your gas, it's saving your time, it's saving all those. Time is money and all that. So, give it up where you can. If you can't give your time, give your money.
That's a fact. Join, give an idea. There's lots of times people are like, hey, what about this? I'm like, oh, shoot, what about? I didn't even think of that,
Yep.
I'm thinking about the legislative part of it, but you're right. Like getting out there and organizing, I got to get ready for the hound rendezvous.
All right.
And that's going to take the next 2 months.
Right.
Oh, I should say it's going to take me and Derek the next 2 months.
That's what is?
I'm working on a new job right now tonight that I think I've got sewed up, so I'll have a lot more free time.
There you go.
August. It's the 3rd week of August, I believe.
22nd, 23rd, 24th.
Well, come on, let's go. I'm excited for it. That's the next thing to look forward to, because it's harder than heck right now, and I'm pretty much just doing around here.
Well, and bear, lion, and deer open that weekend.
That's right.
So if you want to stay down there and hunt, I think we got the area. If not, we'll all go down and crash at Casey Fair's house. And if everybody's invited.
Check your accounts, because they're taking money out of accounts right now for deer tags.
I missed it. I forgot about it. I do. I'll probably go to see anyways, but
I didn't even put in. I'm just gonna over the counter. Try to get me a muley in December.
We got hit this morning, so that was a nice deal. So
you don't know what unit yet?
I think 36B. But if I was a betting man, I'm guessing 36B. But it'll either be the dogs. That late, it's that. Well, we got the late November, December season, so it'd be a lot more dog friendly.
Yeah, it'll be open still probably too. It didn't close last year till right at the end, I think, if I remember.
Right. Well, everybody's leaving us. It must be it's 11. The one guy I wanted to get on it was 9 o'clock over there. I wanted to get Reese Baker on, kind of talk about what he's one of them guys that'll tell you how it is too. Probably seen him on Facebook and whatnot. But good conversation. I think we got some stuff out there. I think right now it's dead because nobody's doing nothing, but now's the best time to throw in some of your time and ideas and
get out there and try to talk to people, and even if you're just out having a drink at dinner or bar or whatever it may be, talk to people about dogs, talk to people about what you do, and invite somebody on a hunt. And I know it's kind of out of our nature, but it's only going to help us. It truly is. Like, experience is everything, and if we can get everybody getting a positive light on it, I think it's going to be great. And in the meantime, support all your local, your hound organizations, and give the money where you can, and give your time where you can, and give one or the other, because I know everybody out there's got one or the other.
Yep, that's a fact. That's a fact.
That's right.
All right, guys.
All right, y'all.
Appreciate you coming on.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Good talk. It's fun in the summers because no one's doing nothing, so it's easy to get people on. So, if anybody has any ideas for a show or wants to talk about something that we probably
and if anybody wants to go run around and get on a mule and go run dogs, give me a call.
Yep.
Sign me up.
All right.
Go. Sounds good, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you, fellas.
Yeah.
Well, bye.